The Caribbean sun sparkled across endless blue waters as the Reynolds family posed for one last vacation photo. Michael's arm wrapped protectively around Emma's waist, while 8-year-old Lily flashed a peace sign. 12 hours later, they would vanish without a trace. Security cameras captured Emma and Lily heading for the ice cream parlor on the ship's main deck. They never returned. No bodies were found despite exhaustive searches. Michael's world collapsed into grief and unanswered questions. 5 years passed in a fog of emptiness, until one rainy Tuesday when Michael wandered into an art gallery and froze before a painting that shouldn't exist. The scene depicted held secrets only his family could know. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy mysteries that reveal hidden truths, please subscribe. It helps keep these stories alive. Michael Reynolds stood at his kitchen window, coffee growing cold in his hands as he stared at the backyard swing set nobody used anymore. 5 years had passed since the cruise, 5 years since his life had been cleaved in two before and after they vanished. The official report called it an accident at sea. Emma and Lily Reynolds, presumed drowned after somehow falling overboard from the Caribbean Princess during their family vacation. No witnesses, no bodies recovered, despite a search that covered hundreds of square miles of ocean, just gone, as if the world had swallowed them whole. The morning of their disappearance had been so normal. They'd eaten breakfast on their private balcony. Lily had chocolate milk and couldn't stop talking about the dolphins they'd seen the day before. Emma seemed quieter than usual, but Michael had chalked it up to seasickness. He'd kissed them both goodbye and headed to a tech conference call in the ship's business center, promising to meet them for lunch. That was the last time he saw them. Michael's phone buzzed. Detective Hernandez, again. The detective had been the lead investigator and had never quite let the case go, even after the official search ended. Michael let it go to voicemail. He'd call back later, though these check-ins rarely offered anything but the same questions, the same dead ends. He moved through the house, their house, like a ghost. Emma's art supplies still filled the spare room, untouched since she'd packed a small travel set for the cruise. Lily's bedroom remained frozen in time, stuffed animals arranged on her bed exactly as she'd left them. The life insurance money sat mostly untouched in an account. His software engineering job provided more than enough to maintain this shrine to his lost family. Friends had tried to help him move on. They'd set him up on dates that went nowhere, suggested grief counseling that couldn't fix the hole in his chest, recommended moving to a new house without the memories. He nodded and thanked them and did none of it. The one thing Michael had changed was becoming obsessive about memory. He digitized every family photo, backed them up in multiple locations. He'd recorded himself recounting stories about Emma and Lily, afraid that time would steal even the memory of them. "I won't forget," he whispered to the empty kitchen. "I won't stop looking." He didn't know it yet, but the universe was finally about to answer. "You need to get out more," Darren from work had insisted, practically dragging Michael to the opening of a new art gallery downtown. "Just 2 hours, then you can go back to your man cave." So here he stood, nursing a plastic cup of cheap wine, nodding absently as Darren chatted with a woman in chunky artistic jewelry. Michael drifted away from them, moving through the crowded gallery on autopilot. The paintings blurred together, splashes of color that failed to penetrate the gray fog that had become his reality. Until he turned a corner, and the world stopped. The painting wasn't large, maybe 24 by 36 inches, but what it depicted sent ice water rushing through Michael's veins. A woman and young girl sat on a distinctive curved rock formation, their backs to the viewer as they gazed out at a lighthouse. The woman's honey blonde hair caught the sunlight just like Emma's. The child wore a bright yellow dress with a pattern of tiny ladybugs identical to Lily's favorite. But it was the details that made Michael's knees buckle. The small stuffed rabbit tucked beside the girl, worn at the edges exactly like Lily's beloved Mr. Flopsy. The distinctive silver charm bracelet on the woman's wrist that Michael had given Emma on their 10th anniversary, with charms representing milestone moments in their lives. And there, etched into the rock beside them, were the initials M+E inside a heart, something he and Emma had actually carved during a private picnic at that exact spot near her parents' lake house in Michigan. A spot they had only visited once with Lily. A spot no stranger could know about. The painting was signed in the corner with simple initials, Emma Wilson, Emma's maiden name. "Are you okay, sir?" A gallery attendant touched his arm gently. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "This painting," Michael managed, his voice a rasp. "That's one of Eleanor West's pieces," the woman said. "She's becoming quite popular in regional galleries. Very private person, though, rarely appears at showings." Eleanor West. The name rang in Michael's head. "EW, do you have contact information for her? A website? Anything?" The attendant's smile tightened with polite suspicion. "We respect our artist's privacy, sir. But I can give you our gallery card if you're interested in purchasing." "I need to know where she is." The desperation in his voice made nearby patrons turn.
"Is everything all right here?"
A tall man in an expensive suit approached, the gallery owner judging by his authoritative demeanor. "This painting," Michael pointed with a shaking hand. "It's my wife and daughter. They disappeared 5 years ago." The gallery owner and attendant exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Sir, perhaps you've had too much wine," the owner suggested quietly. "That painting is titled Memory Shore. The artist has exhibited similar works for nearly 3 years now." 3 years, Michael repeated, mental calculations spinning. "And where is she based? Where does she live?" "I'm afraid I can't." "Please." Michael pulled out his phone, found a family photo from the cruise. "This is my wife Emma, and our daughter, Lily. They disappeared from a cruise ship 5 years ago. Never found." The gallery owner studied the photo, then the painting, his expression shifting from skepticism to uncertainty. "There's a coastal art community in Port Madeline, about 200 miles north," he finally said, keeping his voice low. "That's where we source her work. That's all I know." Michael's hands trembled as he took a photo of the painting. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of a man watching him intently from across the gallery. Middle-aged, athletic build, with a military-style haircut. When their eyes met, the man quickly turned away and headed for the exit. "Wait," Michael called out, but the stranger was already gone, swallowed by the night beyond the gallery doors. 2 possibilities burned in Michael's mind. Either his wife and daughter were somehow alive, or someone was playing an impossibly cruel trick. Either way, he wouldn't rest until he found the truth. Morning light streamed through the blinds as Michael paced his living room, the walls now covered with printouts. The gallery painting, photos of Emma and Lily, maps of Port Madeline, and every document related to their disappearance. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities both wonderful and terrible. His phone rang, Detective Hernandez, returning his late-night message. "You found a painting you think was done by your wife?" The detective's voice carried the careful tone of someone humoring a potentially unstable person. "Reynolds, we've been down roads like this before." "Not like this," Michael insisted. "The painting shows a private place only we knew about, with details nobody else could know. The artist uses Emma's maiden initials." A weary sigh came through the speaker. "Send me the image. I'll have someone look into this Eleanor West person, but don't get your hopes up. Art theft is common. Someone could have seen an old family photo somewhere." Michael hung up and returned to the box he'd pulled from the attic. The one containing Emma's laptop and phone, returned by the cruise line after the investigation. He'd been through them 100 times before, finding nothing unusual. But now he was looking with fresh eyes. Emma's browsing history from the weeks before the cruise showed searches about the Caribbean princess, which seemed normal for vacation planning. but buried among them were searches about cruise line security protocols and staff background checks. Why would she research that? The day before they disappeared flooded back to him. Emma had seemed distracted during breakfast, checking her phone repeatedly. When he'd asked what was wrong, she'd smiled too brightly and said, "Just making sure we don't miss any of the fun activities." Later, he'd seen her in intense conversation with a crew member near the service elevators, a place passengers rarely went. When she noticed Michael approaching, she'd quickly ended the discussion. "Who was that?" he'd asked. "Just asking about the kids' club schedule," she'd replied, looping her arm through his. "Let's get some sun." At the time, he'd thought nothing of it. Now the memory felt heavy with significance. Michael dove deeper into Emma's emails, finding one exchange with another passenger she'd apparently met on board, a woman named Judith Klein. Met another art teacher at breakfast. Emma had written to her sister. Strange coincidence. She noticed the same weird things I did about some of the staff and certain passengers. Going to compare notes tonight. The reply from Emma's sister was short. "Always making friends. Have fun but don't get into trouble." That email was sent the morning before Emma and Lily vanished. Michael's search for Judith Klein yielded nothing in the passenger lists. It was as if she'd never existed. His doorbell rang, startling him. Through the peephole, he saw Detective Hernandez standing on his porch, which was unusual. Their communications were typically by phone. "I was in the neighborhood," the detective explained as Michael let him in. Hernandez was a barrel-chested man with perpetually tired eyes and the methodical manner of someone who'd seen too much to be easily surprised. Wanted to see this evidence in person. Michael showed him the painting photo, the searches on Emma's laptop, the email about Judith Klein. As he explained his theory that Emma had discovered something on the cruise ship that led to their disappearance, he watched the detective's expression shift from skeptical to thoughtful. "The cruise line was very cooperative with our investigation," Hernandez said carefully. "But there were some inconsistencies in the staff statements, nothing concrete enough to pursue further." "And now?" Hernandez rubbed his jaw. "The timing works. If your wife and daughter didn't die and have been living under new identities for the past 3 years, they could be in witness protection," Michael finished. "I didn't say that." The detective's response came too quickly. "But I'll run this Eleanor West through our databases, see what comes up." As Hernandez left, Michael noticed a black sedan parked down the street. It pulled away as soon as the detective reached his car. That night, Michael's house was broken into while he was out getting groceries. Nothing was taken, but his research wall had been photographed. The intruder had carelessly left a memory card from a digital camera on the floor. More disturbing, on Emma's laptop, someone had accessed a hidden folder Michael hadn't found, but the contents had been wiped clean. After filing a police report, Michael sat in his kitchen, a decision crystallizing. He couldn't wait for Hernandez or the system. In the morning, he would drive to Port Madeline himself. As he packed a bag, his hand brushed against something in his dresser drawer, a small origami bird Emma had made him years ago. Inside she'd written, "When the world seems dark, remember I'm your lighthouse. Always follow the light home." Lighthouses, like the one in the painting. Outside his bedroom window, the black sedan had returned, parked just within view. Someone was watching him. But who? People who wanted to keep Emma and Lily hidden, or the people they were hiding from. Either way, Michael was done waiting for answers. It was time to find his lighthouse. Port Madeline emerged from the coastal fog like something from another time, a small harbor town with weathered buildings in faded blues and grays, fishing boats bobbing in the marina, and art galleries dotting the main street. Michael arrived just after noon, the drive from home having taken longer than expected due to his careful measures to ensure he wasn't followed. He'd left his phone at home, purchased a prepaid one instead, paid cash for everything. Even switched rental cars at a secondary location. Perhaps it was paranoia, but the break-in had convinced him caution was necessary. The town's main gallery, Lighthouse Arts Collective, seemed the logical place to start. Inside, the salt-tinged air mixed with the smell of paint and varnish. An elderly woman with striking silver hair greeted him from behind the counter. "Just browsing," Michael said, scanning the walls for anything resembling the style of the painting he'd seen. "Let me know if anything speaks to you," she offered before returning to her ledger. In the back corner, he found what he was looking for. 3 small landscapes with the same atmospheric quality as Memory's Shore, all signed with the same initials. "These are beautiful," he said casually, returning to the counter. "Eleanor West, right. Is she local?" The woman's warm demeanor cooled slightly. "She is. Are you a collector?" "An admirer. I saw her work in the city and was moved by it." Michael maintained an easy smile despite his pounding heart. "I'd love to commission something similar to Memory's Shore, the lighthouse piece." "Eleanor doesn't take commissions." The response came too quickly. "But I can notify you when new pieces arrive." "Perhaps I could speak with her directly?" "I'm only in town for a few days." The woman's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Miss West values her privacy. I'm sure you understand." As Michael left the gallery with a business card but no real information, the weight of impossibility pressed down on him. Port Madeline wasn't large, but finding someone who didn't want to be found wouldn't be simple. He checked into the Harbor View Inn, a small bed and breakfast overlooking the water. The innkeeper, a chatty man named Frank, proved more forthcoming than the gallery owner. "Artists are the lifeblood of Port Madeline now that fishing's dried up," Frank explained as he showed Michael to his room. "Most of them live on the north side of town. We call it the Colony." "Any Eleanor West up there?" Michael asked, trying to sound merely curious.
Eleanor?
"Sure. Quiet lady. Lives in the blue cottage past the old cannery with her daughter. Keeps to herself mostly, but her girl sometimes helps my wife with garden work." Michael's heart stuttered. A daughter. How old is the daughter? Frank thought for a moment. 13 maybe? Sweet kid. Bit shy. The right age. It had to be them. That afternoon, Michael walked the north side of town, eventually spotting the old cannery, now converted to artist studios, and beyond it a row of cottages facing the sea. The blue one sat slightly apart from the others, partially hidden by overgrown rose bushes. A bicycle leaned against the porch. A child's bicycle. He watched from a distance, heart hammering. Just as he considered approaching, a girl emerged from the cottage. Even from 100 yards away, he recognized the way she moved, the same bounce in her step that Lily had always had. Her hair was different, shorter, darker, but it was her. It had to be her. The girl hopped on the bicycle and rode in the opposite direction. Michael debated following her, but the cottage door opened again. A woman stepped out onto the porch. She wore a broad sun hat and paint-spattered overalls, but the profile was unmistakable. Emma. She was alive. They both were. A storm of emotions nearly drove Michael to his knees. Relief, joy, confusion, and underneath it all, a simmering anger. 5 years of grief, and they'd been here all along? Before he could move, a truck pulled up to the cottage. A man got out, tall, with the same military haircut as the stranger from the gallery. The man and Emma spoke briefly. She seemed agitated, glancing around repeatedly before handing him what looked like a folder. The man checked his watch, nodded, and drove away. Michael retreated, mind racing. He needed to think, to plan. Confronting Emma without understanding the situation could be dangerous for all of them. Back at the inn, he requested a local newspaper archive from Frank, claiming interest in the town's history. The innkeeper directed him to a collection of bound volumes in the reading room. Michael started 3 years back when Eleanor West first appeared in galleries. The local paper had covered a small art show featuring new resident artists. There she was, Emma, half hidden under the same sun hat, identified as E. West, formerly of Chicago. Chicago. They had never lived in Chicago. More digging revealed nothing about her arrival in Port Madeline. It was as if Eleanor West had simply manifested one day, complete with a backstory nobody questioned. His research was interrupted by a knock at his door. Frank stood there looking uncomfortable. "Sorry to bother you, Mr. Reynolds, but there was a call for you at the front desk." Michael frowned. "Nobody knows I'm here. Guy said he's Detective Hernandez? Said it's urgent, you call him back." A chill ran through Michael. He'd told no one where he was going. Using the inn's landline, he called Hernandez's cell number. "How did you know where I am?" Michael demanded when the detective answered. "You're not as careful as you think," Hernandez replied. "Listen to me carefully. You need to come home now. You're interfering with an ongoing federal investigation." "Federal? So it is witness protection." A long pause. "I can't confirm or deny that, but I can tell you that if Emma and Lily are alive, there's a reason they haven't contacted you. A dangerous reason." "I saw them today," Michael said, voice breaking. "My wife and daughter are alive, and nobody told me for 5 years." "Reynolds." "No, I deserve answers." "Then meet me tomorrow." "I'm driving up tonight. We'll talk in person." Hernandez sounded resigned. "But until then, stay away from that cottage. You have no idea what you're walking into." After hanging up, Michael sat by the window watching darkness fall over the harbor. The sensible move would be to wait for Hernandez, but 5 years of emptiness had hollowed out his patience. He slipped out after midnight, making his way back to the blue cottage. The windows were dark. A light rain had begun to fall, misting the air and muffling his footsteps. The back door's lock was simple, something he might have pointed out to Emma in another lifetime. Inside, the cottage smelled of turpentine and coffee. He moved silently through the kitchen into what had to be a studio space, canvases stacked against walls, brushes soaking in jars, sketches pinned everywhere. And the paintings, dozens of them. Many showed the same lighthouse from different angles, in different weather. But in the corner, covered by a cloth, stood a larger canvas. Michael pulled the cloth away. The painting showed a cruise ship at night. In a small boat alongside it, shadowy figures were transferring what looked like huddled people from the ship to the boat. Hidden in the complex pattern of waves below were words almost invisible unless you knew to look for them. Phoenix Rising and Caribbean Princess Level 3. A stack of sketches on the desk showed similar scenes. All cruise ships, all with encoded messages hidden in the patterns. Next to them lay a notebook filled with what appeared to be names, dates, and shipping manifests. As Michael reached for it, the lights flashed on. "Don't move." He turned slowly to find Emma, his Emma, pointing a small handgun at him. She looked both exactly the same and completely different. Harder, thinner, with strands of gray in her once golden hair. Her hands were steady on the weapon. "Emma," he breathed. Her composure cracked slightly at the sound of her real name. "How did you find us?" "The painting in the city gallery. You knew I'd recognize it." Something flickered in her eyes. "I never meant for it to be displayed there. It was private. A mistake." "A mistake?" Anger flared unexpectedly. 5 years, Emma. 5 years, thinking you were dead."
You need to leave. Now.
Her voice shook slightly. "Before Lily gets back."
Gets back?
"At 1 in the morning?" Emma's eyes darted to the window. "She's at a friend's house. You can't be here when she returns. She can't know you found us." "Why?" Michael took a step forward, ignoring the gun. "What happened on that ship? What are you hiding from?" "Please," Emma whispered. And now there were tears in her eyes. "If they find out you're here, We're all dead. Who? The cruise line. I saw your paintings. They're smuggling people, aren't they? Human trafficking. Emma lowered the gun slightly. You don't understand. It goes higher than the cruise line. Government officials, powerful people. I saw something I shouldn't have. Reported it to the wrong person. We barely got out alive.
And you couldn't tell me?
Your husband? They were watching you. Emma's control finally broke. They bugged our house, tracked your phone. Marshal Coleman said contacting you would sign your death warrant and ours. Coleman, the man in the truck? She nodded. Our handler. He's moving us again tomorrow. Someone compromised our identities. Her eyes widened suddenly. How did you get here? Did anyone follow you? Before Michael could answer, headlights swept across the window. Emma moved to look outside, her face draining of color. Black sedan? Michael asked, stomach sinking. It's not Coleman. Emma grabbed his arm with surprising strength. We need to go. Now out the back, through the woods to the lighthouse. There's a safe house. Lily is already there. Coleman took her earlier. Emma shoved a backpack into his arms. These are copies of everything I've documented. If anything happens to me, get them to the FBI field office in Seattle. Agent Teresa Wilkins. No one else. As they slipped out the back door into the rain-soaked night, Michael heard car doors slamming out front. Emma's fingers interlaced with his, the first touch they'd shared in 5 years, as they ran toward the darkness of the tree line and whatever waited beyond. The lighthouse loomed against the night sky, its beam sweeping over churning waves below. Emma led Michael through a narrow path in the dense woods, moving with the confidence of someone who had practiced this route many times. The rain had intensified, soaking them both and turning the ground treacherous underfoot. How much farther? Michael gasped, struggling to keep up. Almost there, Emma replied without looking back. The safe house is beneath the lighthouse keeper's cottage. Coleman will meet us. A gunshot cracked through the rain, splintering bark from a tree beside them. Emma yanked Michael down behind a fallen log. They're faster than I expected, she whispered. Her calm under fire stunned Michael. This was not the art teacher he'd married. We need to separate. You go right along the ridge. I'll draw them left. I'm not leaving you. Emma's eyes softened momentarily. Still stubborn, she pressed something cold and metallic into his palm. The gun. 10 years on the run, I've learned a few things, including how to shoot. Safety's off, point and pull if you have to. The weight of the weapon felt wrong in Michael's hand. Emma, what happened to you? Later, she promised. If we both make it to the lighthouse, you'll get the whole story. Another shot rang out. Closer this time. Emma squeezed his hand once, then pushed him toward the ridge path. Go, find Lily. Tell her. She swallowed hard. Tell her Mommy's coming. Before Michael could protest, she was gone, crashing deliberately through the underbrush in the opposite direction. Shouts followed her. Michael forced himself to move, staying low along the ridge as Emma had instructed. The lighthouse beam swept over him periodically, momentarily blinding him before plunging him back into darkness. The keeper's cottage appeared ahead, a small stone structure with a single light burning in the window. Michael approached cautiously, the gun heavy in his hand. The front door stood slightly ajar. Lily? He called softly, pushing the door open. Marshal Coleman? Silence greeted him. The cottage's interior was sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a wood stove barely warming the damp air. A trapdoor in the floor stood open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. Michael climbed down carefully, finding himself in a concrete bunker. Emergency lights cast everything in a sickly green glow. Metal filing cabinets lined one wall. A cot stood in the corner. Blankets rumpled as if recently used. But no Lily. No Coleman. On the center table lay a laptop, screen still glowing, and scattered photographs. Surveillance images of cruise ships, men in expensive suits meeting on docks, cargo being loaded under cover of darkness, and faces. Dozens of young women and children, many looking drugged or frightened. Michael's stomach turned as he realized what Emma had uncovered. Human trafficking on a massive scale, using cruise ships as mobile transport hubs, hiding in plain sight amid thousands of vacationers. Among the photos, one made his blood run cold. The Caribbean Princess, their cruise ship, with the ship's captain shaking hands with a man Michael recognized from news coverage. Senator Howard Mills, head of the Maritime Commerce Committee. A noise above made Michael freeze. Footsteps, heavy. Multiple people. He slipped behind a filing cabinet, gun raised as the ladder creaked under someone's weight. A man descended, not Coleman, but the gallery owner from the city. Behind him came another man whom Michael recognized with shock. Detective Hernandez. Empty, the gallery owner said. Coleman must have moved them already. Hernandez scanned the room. Check the files. See what's missing. What about Reynolds? If he made it here, we'll find him. The woman is the priority. She's the only one who can testify. Michael's mind raced. Hernandez wasn't here to help. He was part of it. The realization that he'd trusted the detective for 5 years, shared his grief with him, made bile rise in his throat. As the men moved to the filing cabinets, Michael slid silently beneath the table, the gun clutched to his chest. From this new angle, he noticed something scratched into the underside of the tabletop. North Point Cave, sunset. A message from Emma or Coleman? Either way, it was his only lead. The men continued searching, moving closer to his hiding spot. Michael's options were disappearing. He needed a distraction. The laptop. If he could reach it. Stretching out slowly, he managed to touch the power cord with his fingertips. One sharp tug, and the computer went dark, plunging the room into momentary confusion. What the? Hernandez turned toward the table. Michael seized the moment, rolling out from his hiding place and bolting for the ladder. A shout behind him, followed by a gunshot that pinged off the metal rungs. He scrambled upward, emerging into the cottage as more shots splintered the wood around the trapdoor. Outside, the storm had intensified. Michael ran blindly into the darkness, away from the lighthouse, the backpack Emma had given him bouncing against his spine. Behind him, voices shouted instructions, flashlight beams cutting through the rain. He ran until his lungs burned, finally collapsing behind a rocky outcropping overlooking the churning sea. North Point Cave. He knew the local geography from his research. North Point was the peninsula extending beyond the lighthouse, and according to local lore, contained a network of sea caves, accessible only at low tide. Checking his watch, 3:17 a.m. Sunrise would be around 6:30, with sunset much later. He had to survive the day, evade capture, and somehow find the cave by sunset. As the first gray light of dawn seeped through the clouds, Michael found shelter in an abandoned boathouse. Inside the backpack, he discovered what Emma had risked her life to document 5 years of meticulous evidence collection. Photographs, shipping manifests, financial records showing millions flowing through shell companies, and a USB drive labeled testimonies. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. Emma had witnessed a trafficking operation on the cruise, reported it to ship security, not realizing they were involved. When they came for her, someone, probably Coleman, had intervened, getting Emma and Lily into witness protection. But the corruption reached into law enforcement, with Hernandez feeding information to the traffickers. For 5 years, Emma had been gathering evidence while hiding their identities, using her art to encode information passed to trusted federal agents. The paintings publicly displayed were innocuous, but the ones kept private contained encoded evidence. Among the papers, Michael found a sealed envelope with his name written in Emma's handwriting. Inside was a letter dated just 3 months after their disappearance. Michael, if you're reading this, you've found us, which means either we're finally safe or we're in more danger than ever. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you. Every day away from you has been a kind of death. The night before we disappeared, I saw something on the ship, young girls being escorted through staff areas, drugged, terrified. I reported it to security, naive enough to think they would help. Hours later, a woman from the FBI approached me in secret, warning me we were in danger. They were planning to handle the problem, us, during the night. We had minutes to decide. Coleman got us off the ship before they could reach us. I begged to contact you, but they showed me proof our house was already being watched. Contacting you would sign your death warrant. I've thought about you every day, told Lily stories about her brave, brilliant daddy. The hardest part wasn't running or hiding, it was knowing you were alive but couldn't be with us.
I love you. I've always loved you.
Whatever happens now, know that everything I did was to keep Lily safe and to someday find our way back to you. Your lighthouse always, Emma. Michael folded the letter with trembling hands as sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere in Port Madeline, Emma was running too, leading their pursuers away from Lily, away from him, the same way she'd been protecting them both for 5 years. North Point Cave at sunset. His family would be there if he could survive until then. The day passed with excruciating slowness. Michael remained hidden in the boathouse, watching through cracks as police vehicles and unmarked cars circled the harbor. Twice, search parties passed within yards of his hiding place. News spread through the small town about a manhunt for a dangerous fugitive, him presumably. By mid-afternoon, hunger and thirst became pressing problems. He hadn't eaten since yesterday, and the rainwater he'd collected in an old can tasted of rust and salt. The temptation to seek help was strong, but Emma's evidence had made one thing brutally clear. He couldn't trust anyone in Port Madeline. As shadows lengthened across the harbor, Michael studied his map of the coastline, plotting a route to North Point that would keep him away from roads and houses. The cave would only be accessible for a few hours around low tide, which aligned roughly with sunset, intentional planning on Coleman's part, no doubt. Just as he prepared to leave the boathouse, voices approached. Michael ducked behind a stack of moldering fishing nets. "Waste of resources," a woman was saying. "They're long gone." "Senator wants every inch covered," a male voice replied. One Michael recognized from the lighthouse bunker. "The woman has evidence that could take down half the eastern seaboard's political machine." "And the husband?" "Collateral damage. No witnesses." The voices faded as they continued down the dock. Michael waited until silence returned before slipping out the back of the boathouse, staying low along the waterline. The journey to North Point took over an hour of careful movement through dense undergrowth and along rocky beaches. The peninsula jutted into the ocean like a gnarled finger, ending in sheer cliffs battered by waves. According to his map, the caves would be at the base of these cliffs, only accessible by a narrow path winding down from above. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Michael found the path, little more than a game trail threading precariously down the cliff face. The tide was going out, revealing a narrow strip of rocky beach below. No sign of Emma, Lily, or Coleman. He began the treacherous descent, loose rocks skittering away beneath his feet and plunging to the beach below. Halfway down, a sound made him freeze, the mechanical whine of a boat engine approaching around the point. Pressing himself against the cliff face, Michael watched as a sleek, black motorboat came into view, moving slowly along the shoreline. 2 men stood at the bow, scanning the cliffs with binoculars. In the stern, Detective Hernandez spoke into a radio. They were searching the caves. Michael remained motionless until the boat passed around the next outcropping, then scrambled the rest of the way down to the beach. The cave entrance was partially visible now, a dark mouth in the cliff base that would be completely submerged at high tide. As he approached the entrance, the distinctive click of a gun hammer being pulled back stopped him cold. That's far enough. Marshal Coleman emerged from the shadows of the cave entrance, his service weapon trained on Michael's chest. He looked exactly as he had at the gallery and outside Emma's cottage, military haircut, athletic build, eyes that missed nothing. "Where are they?" Michael demanded, hands raised. "Where's my family?" "Not here." Coleman's expression gave nothing away. "That was the point of sending you here, to draw them away from Emma and the girl." "You're working with Hernandez?" Coleman's laugh was bitter. "Hardly Hernandez is bought and paid for by the trafficking network. I've been trying to build a federal case against them for 6 years. Then why point a gun at me?" "Because I don't know if you were followed, and I don't know if I can trust you." Coleman studied him intently. "Emma wanted to contact you from the beginning. I said no. Too risky." "Where is she now?" "Safe house in Seattle with Lily and my partner." "If we're lucky." Coleman finally lowered his weapon slightly. "I've been running your background since you showed up at the gallery, software engineer. No criminal connections, no suspicious financial activity. But you could still be compromised." Michael took a step forward. "They're my family. They're my witnesses in the biggest human trafficking case in U.S. history." Coleman's voice hardened. 5 years of work. Dozens of victims identified, political figures, business leaders, law enforcement, all implicated. The evidence in the backpack, part of it. Emma's been documenting everything through her paintings. Information hidden in plain sight. The trafficking network realized too late that the quiet artist in Port Madeline was systematically building a case against them. The sound of the motorboat engine returned, growing louder. Coleman cursed under his breath. "They found us sooner than I expected." He made a quick decision. "If you want to see your family again, you do exactly what I say. I need to know they're really okay first." Coleman pulled out a phone, tapped the screen and handed it to Michael. The video showed Emma and Lily sitting in what looked like a motel room. Lily was older, her face losing its baby roundness, but her smile was the same. Beside her, Emma looked directly into the camera and spoke, "Michael, if you're seeing this, trust Coleman. We're waiting for you." The date stamp was from 3 hours ago. Michael handed the phone back, a knot in his throat. "What do we do?" Coleman checked his weapon. "We get off this beach. Then we expose the people who've been hunting your family for 5 years." The motorboat engine cut suddenly, leaving only the sound of waves against rocks. "Now or never, Reynolds," Coleman said quietly. "Are you in?" Michael thought of Emma's letter, of 5 years lost, of Lily growing up without him. He reached for the gun in his waistband, Emma's gun. "I'm in." The Seattle rain fell in sheets, drumming against the roof of the safe house, a nondescript ranch-style home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Michael stood at the window, watching water cascade down the glass while Coleman secured the perimeter one last time. Their escape from Port Madeline had been narrow. Coleman had led him through a network of sea caves that honeycombed the cliffs, emerging miles down the coast where a car waited. They'd driven through the night, switching vehicles twice before reaching Seattle. But the backpack full of evidence never made it. In the chaos of their escape, it had been lost, dropped into the churning waters, or left behind in the caves. 5 years of Emma's careful documentation, gone. "We still have enough," Coleman assured him, returning from his check of the grounds. "The USB drive you saved has the victim testimonies, and we have Emma's direct eyewitness account. It's enough to start." Michael turned from the window. "When do I see them?" "Soon. Agent Wilkins is bringing them here tonight." Coleman checked his watch. 2 hours, maybe less. 2 more hours after 5 years. The weight was excruciating. "Tell me about Lily," Michael said, needing something to fill the silence. "How has she been?" Coleman's expression softened slightly. "Strong kid. Adapted better than most adults would. Emma homeschooled her the first 2 years, then we created identities secure enough for public school." A rare smile crossed his face. "She's scary smart, like her father," Emma says. Michael absorbed this glimpse of the life he'd missed. And Emma, the painting? Her cover initially. Then it became more. Art therapy. The psychologist called it. Coleman busied himself checking the secure satellite phone. She encoded information in the paintings, locations, names, dates. Only a handful of trusted agents knew to look for it. But Hernandez found out. Not exactly. Coleman's expression darkened. "We've had a mole in the Marshal Service, someone who's been feeding information to the network. When your wife's paintings started appearing in galleries, the mole recognized her style." "How high does this go?" Michael asked. "Senator Mills is just the public face. Behind him are shipping magnates, hedge fund managers, corrupt officials in a dozen countries, people who can make problems disappear. People like us." Coleman nodded grimly. "Exactly like us." The satellite phone chirped. Coleman answered, his posture immediately tensing. The conversation was brief, consisting mostly of clipped acknowledgments. "Change of plans," he said after hanging up. "Wilkins thinks they've been compromised. She's diverting to the secondary location." "Which is where—" Coleman hesitated. "I can't tell you that yet." Frustration boiled over. "I'm tired of being kept in the dark about my own family. The fewer people who know their location, the safer they are." Coleman snapped back. "You think this is a game? These people have operatives everywhere. The detective who you trusted for 5 years was on their payroll. The gallery owner who pointed you to Port Madeline, one of theirs, setting a trap. Then why haven't they killed us already? Because they don't want just Emma. They want everything she knows. Every contact, every piece of evidence, every agent who's helped her." Coleman checked his weapon for the dozenth time. "And now they want you too. The family leverage." Michael absorbed this. "You're using me as bait." "Not my plan," Coleman admitted. "But Wilkins thinks we can turn their focus on you to our advantage." "How?" "Press conference. Tomorrow morning, you go public with what you know. Husband discovers missing wife and daughter alive, uncovers trafficking ring with political connections. Too public for them to touch you without confirming everything. And while they're focused on me, Emma testifies before a sealed grand jury. Federal indictments come down simultaneously across 6 states. If it works, we decapitate the entire operation in 1 day." The plan had a certain elegant simplicity. It also put Michael directly in the crosshairs. "I'll do it," he said, on one condition. Coleman studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Fair enough. We leave in 30 minutes." As Michael gathered his few belongings, a small news item on Coleman's tablet caught his eye. A fire in Port Madeline had destroyed a blue cottage near the old cannery. The article mentioned suspected arson but no casualties. They were erasing every trace of Eleanor West. The satellite phone chirped again. Coleman's conversation this time was longer, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "What is it?" Michael asked when he hung up. "Hernandez is dead. Found floating in the harbor at Port Madeline. He was helping them." "Loose ends?" Coleman said grimly. "They're cleaning house." As they prepared to leave, Michael found himself wondering if he was leading the danger straight to Emma and Lily. After 5 years apart, he might finally see them only to put them in greater peril. Unless he could find another way. The safe house wasn't a house at all, but an abandoned fish processing plant on the outskirts of Tacoma. Its rusted exterior and broken windows created a perfect camouflage. No one would imagine it contained a high-tech FBI command center in its concrete core. Coleman led Michael through a series of security checkpoints, each more stringent than the last. Armed agents monitored screens showing thermal imagery of the surrounding area. The air smelled of salt, industrial cleaner, and tension. "Where are they?" Michael asked, as they entered what appeared to be a war room. Tables covered with maps and surveillance photos, agents speaking urgently into headsets. A woman approached, tall, African-American with close-cropped hair and the bearing of someone used to command. "Agent Teresa Wilkins," she introduced herself. "You must be Reynolds." "Where's my family?" Michael repeated. Wilkins and Coleman exchanged glances. "There's been a complication," Wilkins said carefully. "The transport bringing your wife and daughter was diverted. We lost communication approximately 40 minutes ago." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Michael's feet. Lost communication? What does that mean? "It means we don't know where they are right now," Coleman admitted, "but we have protocols for this. Agent Rivera was driving them. She's one of our best." "The press conference is in less than 12 hours, Wilkins added. "We need to proceed as planned." Michael stared at them in disbelief. "You want me to go in front of cameras while my family is missing?" "Not missing," Coleman corrected. "Just temporarily out of contact. Rivera will bring them in." "Unless she's the mole," Michael said, the terrible possibility forming in his mind. "Unless your best agent is working for them." The satellite phone on Wilkins' hip chirped. She answered, listened briefly, then handed it to Michael without a word. "Hello," he said cautiously.
Michael?
Emma's voice, breathless but unmistakably hers. "Emma, where are you? Are you safe?" "Listen carefully." She cut him off. "We're okay for now, but Rivera is dead. Someone hit our transport. Lily and I got away, but they're searching." Michael's knees weakened. He gripped the edge of a table to stay upright. "Abandoned shipyard near Commencement Bay. We're hiding in a container office, but they have thermal imaging. It's just a matter of time." Her voice hitched. "Michael, there's something you need to know about Phoenix Operation. The reference in your paintings. It's not just an operation, it's a person. Senator Mills' chief of staff, Philip Nix. He runs the entire network, has for 20 years." Michael looked up to see Coleman and Wilkins watching intently. He put the phone on speaker. "The evidence we gathered," Emma continued. "Lost during extraction," Coleman said loudly enough for her to hear. "Not all of it," Emma replied. "Lily has it. The most important piece." In the background, Michael could hear Lily's voice, though he couldn't make out the words. The sound hit him like a physical blow. His daughter, so close yet still beyond reach. "What does she have?" Wilkins asked. "Phoenix's ledger. Real names, payments, blackmail material, everything." Emma's voice dropped lower. "He kept it as insurance against his associates. Lily memorized the access codes when we found it on the cruise. She was just playing with his tablet while he was meeting with the captain, but she has a photographic memory. That's why they want her so badly." The whole operation for a child's memory? Michael couldn't keep the horror from his voice. Not just any memory. Perfect recall. She can reproduce the entire encryption key, over 100 characters. Coleman was already issuing orders to agents around the room. "We need extraction at Commencement Bay Shipyard now. Full tactical team." "No," Emma said sharply. "There's no time, and you still have a mole. That's how they found us in transit." Her voice softened. "Michael, do you remember our first apartment? The trick with the breaker box?" It took him a moment to understand what she meant. Their first apartment had faulty wiring. Whenever something blew the circuit, Emma would trip all the breakers at once, then reset them one by one to isolate the problem. "You want to trip the breakers," he said. "Flush out the mole." And Phoenix himself, Emma confirmed. He's here, Michael, leading the search personally. The implications sent ice through Michael's veins. If they captured Emma and Lily, they would disappear forever. If Phoenix was captured, the entire network could be dismantled. I'm coming to you, Michael said. No, both Emma and Coleman began simultaneously. Not negotiable. Michael's voice hardened with determination. Tell me exactly where you are. Emma gave quick, precise directions to their hiding place in the shipyard. Michael, she added before disconnecting, be careful. These aren't just criminals. They're desperate people with everything to lose. The line went dead. Coleman moved immediately, issuing orders for tactical support. Wilkins pulled Michael aside. This is exactly what we can't do, she said urgently, rushing in without proper preparation. My family doesn't have time for proper preparation. Listen to me, Wilkins insisted. Phoenix being there personally changes everything. This could end the entire operation, but only if we do it right. A plan crystallized in Michael's mind. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but with a chance of success. The press conference, he said. Move it up, right now. What? Emergency press conference. Anonymous tip about a major human trafficking bust in progress. Every news outlet in Seattle. Wilkins' eyes widened as she caught on. Bright lights. News helicopters. Nowhere for Phoenix to hide. And no time for the mole to warn him, Michael added. But we need to hurry. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Wilkins made calls, activating FBI press contacts. Coleman equipped Michael with a concealed microphone and tracking device. A tactical team assembled, ready to deploy the moment the press created their distraction. As Michael prepared to leave with a small advance team, Coleman pulled him aside. This could go very wrong, he warned. Phoenix has nothing left to lose. Neither do I, Michael replied. I already lost 5 years with my family. I won't lose another day. The shipyard was a graveyard of maritime ambitions. Rusting container ships awaiting salvage, stacks of shipping containers creating a maze of metal corridors, abandoned machinery looming like industrial skeletons. The perfect hunting ground for predators. Michael and 2 agents approached on foot, using thermal imaging to avoid the search teams combing the area. According to Emma, they were hiding in a small container office at the far eastern edge, near where the ships docked for loading. The night was clear and cold, stars sharp overhead. In the distance, lights from the city reflected off low clouds. Michael checked his watch. 20 minutes until the press would arrive in force. Movement ahead, one agent whispered, indicating heat signatures on his handheld scanner. Multiple targets converging on the eastern section. They were running out of time. Gunfire suddenly erupted from the direction of the container office, short, controlled bursts, followed by shouts and more sustained fire. Michael's heart seized. They've found them, he breathed. Without waiting for the agents, he broke into a run, weaving through the container maze toward the sound of gunfire. Behind him, the agents called for him to stop, then radioed for immediate backup. The container office came into view. A prefabricated structure elevated on stilts above the dock. Flashlight beams crisscrossed around it as armed men took cover behind containers, focusing their fire on the office's single door. From his position behind a forklift, Michael could see a figure inside returning fire, not Emma, but someone else. Agent Rivera, supposedly dead, or another ally. A man in an expensive overcoat stood slightly back from the action, issuing commands. Even from a distance, Michael recognized him from news coverage and campaign photos. Philip Nix, the senator's chief of staff, Phoenix himself. Michael's earpiece crackled. "Press ETA 3 minutes, came Wilkins' voice. 3 minutes, might as well be 3 years. The gunfire intensified, and Michael saw the office door beginning to splinter under the assault. Without conscious thought, he found himself moving, circling around to approach from behind Nix and his men. The gun Emma had given him felt heavy in his hand. He had nearly reached them when searchlights suddenly blazed from above, news helicopters arriving ahead of schedule, their powerful beams turning night to day. Sirens wailed in the distance as police and FBI vehicles approached. The unexpected illumination created seconds of confusion among Nix's men. Michael used that moment to rush forward, tackling Nix to the ground. "FBI, don't move!" came shouts from all directions as tactical teams swarmed in. "Daddy?" The voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Michael looked up to see Lily. His Lily, taller and older but unmistakably his daughter, standing in the doorway of the container office. Behind her stood Emma, arm in a makeshift sling, eyes finding his across the distance. "Get down!" Michael screamed as one of Nix's men swung his weapon toward them. Multiple shots rang out. The gunman fell, but not before a single round found its mark. Michael felt the impact more than the pain, a hammer blow to his shoulder that spun him around. He stumbled, fell to his knees as the world tilted sideways. Through a haze of shock, he was aware of Emma and Lily running toward him, of tactical teams securing the area, of Nix being handcuffed nearby. "Michael!" Emma reached him first, pressing her hand against his wound. "Stay with me. Look at me." He focused on her face, older, harder, but still the woman he'd loved for a lifetime. "You came back," he managed. "We never left," she whispered, tears tracking down her face. "Not really." Lily crashed into them, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "Daddy, I knew you'd find us. I told Mom you would." The pain receded beneath a wave of something stronger, the feeling of his family. Whole again after 5 years of emptiness. Whatever happened next, they were together. As paramedics rushed toward them and the news helicopters circled overhead, capturing the dramatic reunion that would dominate headlines by morning, Michael held his family close. Phoenix operation was over. The long journey home had finally begun. Autumn leaves skittered across the deck of the lakeside cabin as Michael poured coffee into 3 mugs. 6 months had passed since the night at the shipyard. 6 months of testimonies, protective custody, and gradual healing, both physical and emotional. His shoulders still ached when rain threatened, a permanent reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything again. A small price to pay. Emma emerged from the cabin, wrapped in a sweater against the morning chill. Michael nodded, throwing pebbles at the fish. Some things never change. Some things did change, though. The indictments had come down exactly as Wilkins had planned. Simultaneous arrests across 6 states, over 40 people charged. Senator Mills had resigned in disgrace. Phoenix, Philip Nix, was cooperating with authorities in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. The trafficking network had been dismantled, though both Coleman and Wilkins cautioned that such operations had a way of regenerating under new leadership. But for now at least, this particular monster had been slain. Emma settled beside Michael on the bench, their shoulders touching. These small contacts had become precious, reminders that the separation was over. "I spoke with Dr. Levine yesterday," she said quietly. "She thinks Lily's making good progress." Lily's adjustment had been challenging. 5 years believing her father had been kept away to protect them, followed by the trauma at the shipyard. The nightmares had been frequent at first, but were gradually subsiding. "And you?" Michael asked, studying his wife's face. The new lines around her eyes, the strand of gray at her temple. "One day at a time," Emma replied with a small smile. She glanced at the easel set up near the railing, where a half-finished landscape took shape. Painting helps. Without codes this time. From the dock below, Lily called up to them. "Mom, Dad, look what I found." They both rose automatically, moving to the railing to see their daughter holding up what appeared to be an unusually shaped stone. "It looks like a heart," she called proudly. Michael felt Emma's hand slip into his. So much lost time to make up for. So many new memories to create. Their new identities were in place. New names, new backgrounds, carefully constructed by the Marshal Service. A fresh start in a new state once the trials were complete. Coleman had promised to keep in touch. One of the few connections to their ordeal they would maintain. "Do you ever regret it?" Michael asked suddenly. "Reporting what you saw that day on the ship? Knowing what it would cost us?" Emma considered the question, watching Lily skipping stones across the lake's surface. "Sometimes," she admitted. "In weak moments. But then I think about the girls we helped save. The ones who get to go home to their families because the network was exposed." She turned to face him. "And I remember that we found our way back to each other despite everything." Michael pulled her close, feeling the solid reality of her in his arms. No longer a memory or a dream. Below them, Lily had discovered something new to investigate, her face bright with curiosity and wonder. Their daughter, safe, free. Some prices, no matter how steep, were worth paying. That's the end of the story. What would you have done if you were in Michael's position and discovered your missing family was actually alive? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of discovery and reunion, hit subscribe for more captivating stories. Click now to discover the next story.